G'day, it's Oscar here from Drones for Hire. This is another one of our setup day videos, really designed for new operators getting started on the systems. We're going to be having a look at some of the stuff on the T100 today. The main thing we're going to focus on today is route missions and the ways that you can make them more efficient, easier to set up, and some little tips and tricks. So the first one is to play around with your course angle. So if we have a look at the controller here. Okay, so here we've got a fairly complex spray job, route mission. And what we're looking at here is these white lines. So this line here that's traversing along, and these ones running around the outside, this one here running back up, and sections like this top left hand corner here where we've got lots of these white lines. So if we remember that white lines are times that the aircraft is spraying but not applying, be it spreading or spraying, and so those times can be quite inefficient and can waste a lot of battery. Now the more we play with our course angle sometimes, the more efficient we can get those flight routes and reduce those white lines, those flights of transition. Okay, so we're going to edit here. And then if we go onto the advanced options, we can change our route angle, our course angle. So there's a couple of options for doing this. We can click on the side of the runs, but one of the good ways to play around with these efficiencies is just by tapping this move by 1 degree. So let's focus on this corner up here. So at the moment we've got quite a lot of white lines, a lot of transversing around those obstacles. If we rotate it, you can see that the efficiency of the flight changes and that we get rid of some of those white lines. So I reckon somewhere like that should be pretty good. No, that's not great. Keep going round. Now the other thing I'm keeping in mind here is the contours of the land. So we do want to run across contours as opposed to up and down hill, trying to keep that drone flight path fairly flat. So that course there I'm pretty happy with, because it is running with the contours of the land and we don't have massive long white lines running through the systems here. We've got a couple, and this bit just here in the top middle there, we're not really going to make that any better than it is. But you can play with this more and more, and sometimes you'll suddenly find that there's a really efficient one that suits your operations. Okay, the next tip is put in your obstacles first. So when you're creating your route missions, if you go and put in all your corner boundaries, so if we go into the remote here, we'll go back and we'll start a new one. Okay, so let's say we want to do this area here. So we go into add, pop our boundary points in, and instantly the system's going to put in our spray runs. Now that makes it really hard to identify obstacles sometimes, especially things like power lines. So you can see in this bottom corner here, we've got a power line just there where the crosshairs are. It becomes a little bit tricky to identify. Now if we go back and put in the obstacles first, now we can zoom in and we can identify our obstacles a lot easier. So put a round around that power pole. Round obstacle added. That actually brings us to another one of the points, which is next on the list, and that's look for shadows. So you can see here this power pole. So dead trees and power poles are particularly hard to identify from the satellite image, but utilize a shadow. So look for the shadows, find where it meets your power pole. A little bit of local knowledge goes a long way for that sort of thing. But you can see now that without all those lines in, it's really easy to pop in our obstacles and get them exactly where we want. Okay, the next tip is to utilize non-application areas. So when I first started off, I didn't use them much, but as I sort of did more operations over the years, I use them a lot more, because what they allow you to do is exclude areas of application, obviously, but keep your runs straight and long. The more we can maintain the drone's speed, especially over about that 18 k's an hour where we get that transitional lift, the more efficient your flights become and the more consistent your job is. Every time we slow down or speed up, it changes the flight parameters, which can change what those droplets do within our rotor wash. So the more consistent we keep those runs in speed and height, the more consistent our spray and spreading jobs are. So if we have another look on the controller here, if for example we were trying to apply on this area here, and we were trying to apply something like a granular product, a granular herbicide like Flupro granules, let's say that my area of application is in these tree areas. Now I've got a couple of options. I can mark out the areas that I want to apply like this. Okay, and I'm left with something like that. Now the other option is I can go into this non-application area, and again this is a lot easier to do if you do it before you put on your boundary markers, because you can actually see where you want to put that non-application area. If I go and make a non-application area in this area just here, okay, so it hasn't changed actually where we're spraying yet, or where we're applying, but if now I go and remove these boundary points, you'll see that now the aircraft, through this section here, where it's efficient, it's going to keep flying straight. So our battery use and our hectares per hour will go up significantly just by allowing the aircraft to keep moving and just turn off the spray or spread system and go to the next point. This is really good if you've got a lot of patch spraying to do. So say you've got a lot of blackberry, say you've got a lot of lantana, thistles on sheep camps, I find it really good, especially when you've got those tops of the hills and you might have sheep camps in different paddocks, but they're all sort of around the same area. We can just keep flying through and just turn the spray on and off. You do have to be careful with this. Don't go too fast if you're spraying, because you'll get fuzzy edges. Watch your height and things like that, but it can make some route missions a lot more efficient. Okay, the other tip and trick is to run parallel with your contours or with the terrain, and also with obstacles. So things like power lines, for example, rather than trying to go under the power line every single run, or say you've got like a windbreak along the edge of a fence, if you can run parallel to those obstacles, it will make the flight a lot more efficient and stop those white lines or those connection routes, which we know create inefficiency. Okay, so say we're trying to spray this area here where we've got a tree lane in the middle of the working area. You can see from the current orientation of the spray lines that we're doing lots of short runs. Now if we rotate this till it runs basically parallel to that obstacle, we'll find that we get a lot more efficient, useful runs, and there's less of these small short runs. As we know, short runs means you're going to change your spray parameters, they burn your battery faster, so trying to decrease them is a great way to increase your efficiency on these route missions. Okay, the next tip is to utilize the M+ boundary trick. When you run a manual plus spray, you can spray around the edges of your patches and then save that as a field. This is a really, really useful and quick way to set up a route mission. especially if you don't have much local knowledge or your satellite image isn't really accurate. Let's say you've got a crop, the satellite image doesn't display where that crop truly is. Maybe you had some dieback or some waterlogging issues, so you didn't get the crop in, or it didn't come up where you wanted it. So you can then fly around the boundary, spray that boundary run, and then the drone will create an auto mission to fill it in, so a route mission. Okay, the next tip is to only utilize either a map-based building of your route mission or a GPS-based building of your route mission. What I mean by that is when you look at the controller, you can see the satellite image, or maybe you've brought in a high-definition orthomosaic from a mapping drone. But either way, you're looking at an image and you're going to mark out your obstacles and your boundaries based on that image. The other way to do it is we can use, if we look at the controller here, we can use the controller or the aircraft position. Now both of those are utilizing a GPS to mark points. The GPS system shifts, as we know. If you haven't already had a look at the video about rectifying the offset, that'd be a good one to follow after this to understand that. But our GPS systems are going to be out by about 6 meters. Now if we mark points with both the GPS and the satellite image, the differences between those points could be out by that 6 meters. And it can be more than that. I've had jobs where it's out up to 20 meters. So what we try and do is we try and only use one method to set up our route mission. Either image-based points, be them high-definition maps or satellite images, or GPS-based points, utilizing the controller or the drone's position. Now there's another way you can do that as well. You can use Smart Farm and you can use your phone to walk around and mark points with the phone GPS, or the satellite image on the phone as well. But just be aware, if you use one method, stick to that one method and mark in your calibration point or your rectify offset point or your ground reference point, whatever you want to call it. Okay, the next tip is the Smart Farm app. Okay, so the Smart Farm app is a great way to get to understand setting up missions. Even if you don't have a drone, you can register for free, download the app and start making flight paths and spray and spread missions. The other great advantage of it is that you can share maps. So one of the things we do for growers or farm managers is we'll send them some details about how to get the app going. They can then go into the app, mark out the areas they want sprayed, and then share them with operators. That means that when the operator gets on site, they already have the area to be sprayed marked out. All they need to do then is usually coordinate to match obstacles within the spray area, perhaps change course angles and that sort of thing. But the actual areas of applications have already been mapped out. You can use this with the GPS, so you can just mark a point based on where you're standing at the time, or you can just use the satellite image to mark points out. The great advantage of this is that most growers and managers will know exactly where they want sprayed. They're in the fields every day, they know exactly what they want done, so they get that nice and accurate really quickly, really easily. It can save you hours in field sometimes. Okay, the final tip is to utilize the throttle and terrain track in the middle of route missions. When you're flying a route mission, when everything's in automated mode and the aircraft is terrain tracking, you can add throttle or decrease on throttle, and the aircraft will rise or fall while still staying in that route mission. The other thing you can do, and I like to do this by creating my L3 button as a hotkey, a customized button, is you can turn off terrain track. Then the aircraft will hold its altitude and keep flying on that altitude until you either add input or turn terrain track back on. Now, this is a little example of, we're flying over a gully here. As we come up to that gully, I'm just going to hit that L3 button and we're going to turn off terrain track. We're going to fly over that gully while maintaining altitude rather than letting the drone drop down and try and follow that altitude. When it gets to the other side, I'm going to hit L3 again, turn on terrain track, and that drone's going to continue on. If you're going to use this method, you have to be thinking ahead, you have to be on the ball, and you've taken responsibility for that aircraft's height. So you've lost its automated ability to maintain height, and therefore you lose an automated safety factor. But it can really increase your efficiency through these route missions if you've got those really rough changes in terrain where you don't need to be following that terrain perfectly. Okay, hopefully this has helped you with just a few little tips and tricks when you're getting started with the route missions. Again, for most operators who've been operating for a little bit of time, this won't be anything new, but when you're just getting started, these little tricks can help you become more efficient a little bit quicker. The entire time you're running route missions, you're juggling your payload with your battery life, with how efficient you can be, how many hectares per hour. The important thing to remember is when you start off safe and work your way up to efficient. So you don't need to go too fast, you don't need to go too low, you don't need to be getting perfect usage of your battery. So don't fill the drone up full. Run a few flights before you actually get into it to get a feel for the drone, get a feel for the terrain. Walk around the area you're going to apply, take it slow, and then work your way up to efficient. And then you can start to utilize some of these tips and tricks as you start to get confident, as you start to get capable. Thanks for watching.